There was a night when everything felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you made the wrong choices. If you pushed too many people away? If being selective with your energy was the same thing as being lonely. And in that moment, sitting there with nothing but your thoughts, something becomes clear. The world taught you that being alone is a weakness. That you need to keep people close, stay connected, answer every call, respond to every message, prove that you matter by being needed. But what if I told you that the very thing you've been running from, that solitude, that distance from others, is actually the birthplace of something most people will never touch? Real power, not the kind that comes from followers or validation. The kind that changes how every person in your life treats you without you saying a single word. If you've ever felt the weight of being misunderstood, if you've spent years making yourself smaller so others could feel comfortable, if you're tired of chasing people who don't chase you back, then what I'm about to share will rearrange everything you thought you knew about relationships, respect, and control. And if this resonates with you, if you're ready to stop performing for an audience that doesn't deserve front row seats to your life, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we talk about on Silent Strategist isn't for everyone. It's for the ones who are done pretending. Let me take you back to a moment in history that nobody talks about. A room in Italy, early 1500s. Two men sitting across from each other. One of them had prepared for weeks. He had arguments, leverage, reasons why the other man should agree to his terms. He was articulate, sharp, educated. The other man said almost nothing. He didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He just existed in that space with complete calm. And something strange happened. The man who came with all the answers started filling the silence. Started offering things nobody asked for. Started giving away pieces of the deal just to get a response. By the end of that meeting, he had surrendered more than he came to win. And the man who said nothing hadn't moved an inch. The man who walked in with all the words was one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. His name was Machiavelli. And what he learned in that room became the foundation of everything he would later write about power. There's a gravity to a person who doesn't need anything from you. A pull that's almost magnetic. And most of us spend our entire lives doing the exact opposite. Think about how you show up in your relationships right now. How often are you the one texting first? How many times have you explained yourself when nobody asked? How many hours have you spent wondering if someone is upset with you, replaying conversations in your head, adjusting your behavior so they stay comfortable? Every single time you do that, you're handing away a piece of your presence. You're teaching people that your attention is unlimited, that your energy is free. And here's the cold truth. Free things don't get valued. They get used. There's a principle that governs every interaction you've ever had, and it's simple. The person who needs less holds all the cards. Not the person with more money. Not the one with better looks or higher status. The person who can sit in a room and genuinely not care if they walk out with what they came for. That person controls the temperature of every conversation they enter. Because desperation has a frequency. It's invisible, but everyone can feel it. And the moment someone senses that you need them more than they need you, the dynamic is over. You've already lost. I want you to think about someone in your life who you respect deeply. Someone whose opinion actually matters to you. Chances are, that person isn't the one who's always around. They're not the friend who answers every call on the first ring or the colleague who volunteers for everything. They're the one who's harder to reach, the one whose time feels scarce. The one who, when they finally give you their attention, makes it feel like something worth earning. That's not an accident. That's architecture. You've been taught that being available makes you a good person, that saying yes makes you kind, that refusing to help makes you selfish. And all of that is a trap designed to keep you powerless. Because the people who run the world, the ones who command rooms without raising their voice, who get opportunities without asking, who are pursued instead of pursuing, they understand something you were never told. Rarity creates value. And you are rare only if you act like it. Let me tell you about a merchant centuries ago. He wanted to deal with one of the most powerful empires of his time. His entire fortune depended on it. Everything he had built could collapse if this negotiation failed. But instead of rushing to their capital with proposals and pleas, he sent one message. Short. Direct. It said something like this. I'll be in your region next season. If a conversation serves your interests, I'm open to it. He didn't beg. He didn't even confirm he wanted the deal. He positioned his presence as the opportunity. And within days, they agreed to meet. Meanwhile, another merchant, wealthier and better connected, had sent 3 delegations that same year. Each one more desperate than the last. Each one offering better terms, more concessions, sweeter deals, and every single one was ignored. Not because his offer was worse, because desperation smells like weakness, and weakness gets discarded. The empire didn't need to meet with someone who so clearly needed them. They wanted to meet with the man who treated the opportunity like it was mutual, like he had options, like walking away wouldn't destroy him. If you're enjoying this and it's hitting different, go ahead and drop a comment below. Tell me one thing you've been chasing that you need to let go of. Sometimes writing it down is the first step to releasing it. Now here's where most people get this wrong. They think being distant means being cold. They confuse scarcity with cruelty. They imagine that having standards means treating people poorly or playing games with their emotions. But that's not what this is about. This is about knowing that your presence has weight. And weight isn't created by being everywhere all the time. It's created by being somewhere fully when it matters. You don't ignore people to manipulate them. You create space because your life is so full of purpose that diverting from it actually costs something. That's the difference between manipulation and mastery. That's the reason certain restaurants have month-long waiting lists even though the food is objectively better than the place across the street. There's a reason some consultants charge 10 times what others do and still have clients lining up. That's the reason some people get callbacks for jobs they didn't even apply to while others send 100 resumes and hear nothing. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's perception. When something is hard to access, the human brain assigns it more value. That's not theory. That's biology. Scarcity triggers something primal in us, and it applies to you just as much as it applies to anything else. You want to know why you feel drained after some conversations and energized after others? It's just because you've given yourself away in pieces to people who haven't earned the whole picture. You've been explaining your dreams to people who don't have the vision to see them. You've been defending your choices to people who were never going to support them anyway. You've been showing up fully for people who show up halfway. And every time you do that, you're teaching them that access to you is negotiable, that your boundaries are suggestions, that your energy is something they can take without giving anything back. Stop doing that. Right now, today, not because you want to punish anyone, not because you're trying to teach them a lesson, because you want to protect what's left of yourself. The version of you that still has fire, that still believes in something bigger, that still refuses to settle even when everyone around you has. That version is worth more than every shallow connection you've been maintaining out of guilt or fear or habit. Here's something nobody talks about. The moments when you feel most alone are often the moments when you reach closest to becoming the person you were always supposed to be. Because loneliness isn't emptiness, it's clarity. It's the stripping away of distractions and noise and people who only like the version of you that made them comfortable. And once that layer is gone, what's left is the raw material of something unshakable. A person who doesn't need the crowd to feel whole. A person who has looked inward and found that the only approval that ever mattered was their own. That posture, that absolute self-sufficiency, made him more influential than men with armies. And here's what's important to understand. He didn't develop that posture by pretending. He developed it by genuinely becoming someone who had reconciled with his own reality. Someone who had stopped fighting against what he couldn't change and started building something within himself that no one could take away. His circumstances didn't improve because of his attitude. His attitude made his circumstances irrelevant. You can have that same gravity, but it doesn't come from technique. It doesn't come from mimicking confidence or memorizing scripts or following some blueprint for appearing powerful. It comes from one place, ending your war with yourself. Every time you said yes when everything inside you screamed no. Every time you stayed in a situation that was quietly destroying you because leaving felt harder than enduring. Every time you laughed at something that disrespected you or swallowed your truth to keep the peace. Every time you made yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Those weren't just bad moments. Those were fractures in your foundation. And until you acknowledge them, until you stop betraying the person in the mirror, no strategy in the world will make you powerful. Because power that isn't rooted in self-respect is just performance. And performance collapses the first time someone tests it. If this is making you think differently, hit that like button. Let the algorithm know this message needs to reach more people who are ready to hear it. I need you to understand something that's going to sound harsh, but it's the truth. The people who don't value you now won't suddenly start valuing you because you became more available. They'll just take more. The relationship that feels one-sided won't balance out because you gave more effort. It'll just drain you faster. The job that overlooks you won't notice your worth because you worked harder. It'll just expect more without offering anything in return. The friend who only calls when they need something will become reciprocal because you were there for them again. They'll just learn that you're always there. Effort in the wrong direction isn't dedication, it's self-destruction. You've been sold a lie. That if you just try hard enough, give enough, prove enough, sacrifice enough, eventually you'll be seen. Eventually they'll appreciate you. Eventually your loyalty will be rewarded. But the people who see you don't need convincing. They never did. They saw your value from the beginning. And the ones who need convincing will never be satisfied no matter what you do. You could give them everything and they'd find a reason it wasn't enough. So the question isn't how do I make them see me? The question is, why am I still performing for an audience that doesn't deserve a show? There's something almost magical that happens when you stop chasing. When you pull back your energy and invest it in yourself instead of scattering it across people who treat it like background noise. Suddenly, the same people who ignored your texts start asking if you're okay. The same ones who took you for granted start noticing your absence. The same ones who had no time for you somehow find time when they realize you've stopped waiting. It's not a game, it's geometry. You stopped leaning forward, and the space you created made them lean toward you. But here's the part most people miss. You can't do that as a strategy and expect it to work. Because if you're pulling back just to get a reaction, you're still operating from need. You're still attached to the outcome. You're still giving them power over your emotional state. Real detachment means you genuinely don't care if they come back or not. You've built something inside yourself so solid that their presence becomes optional, not essential. And that shift, that inner transformation from need to preference, is what creates the kind of presence people can't ignore. Let me tell you what happens when you commit to this fully. When you stop betraying yourself for the comfort of others, your voice changes. Not louder, heavier. There's a weight to your words that wasn't there before. Your eye contact steadies, not aggressive, not challenging. Just certain. You stop over-explaining, stop defending. Stop justifying your choices to people who don't have the capacity to understand them. Stop negotiating with people who already decided you weren't worth their effort. And in that refusal to shrink, in that quiet insistence on taking up the space you deserve, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. People start describing you in ways that confuse even you. There's something different about them. I can't put my finger on it. They seem more confident, more grounded. I trust them. They're not reacting to what you're doing. They're reacting to what you stopped doing. You stopped apologizing for existing. You stopped performing a version of yourself designed for someone else's approval. You stopped making yourself small so others could feel tall. Before we go further, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because the conversations we have here on Silent Strategist aren't surface level. We go deep, and if you read someone who rests tired of motivational fluff and wants real psychological principles that actually shift how people see you and treat you, this is your channel. We're building something here for people who think differently. Now let's talk about mystery. Not the kind where you lie or play games or manipulate people's perceptions. The kind that comes from genuine depth, from having layers that can't be unpacked in one conversation. Most people give everything away in the first 5 minutes. They narrate their entire plan, explain every decision before it's made, defend every choice before anyone even questions it, tell you their whole life story before you've asked a single question. And by doing that, they eliminate the one thing that keeps people coming back: curiosity. Human beings are wired to complete patterns. It's how our brains work. When something is left unfinished, when there's a gap between what we know and what we sense, our brain can't let it go. It returns to it, obsesses over it, fills in the blanks even when we don't have the information. And that gap, that space between what people know about you and what they suspect, that's where your influence lives. That's where fascination is born. Think about the people who have fascinated you most in your life. The ones you couldn't stop thinking about. Were they the ones who told you their whole life story the first time you met? Who explained every motivation, every fear, every dream in excruciating detail? Or were they the ones who left you with questions? Who said something that didn't quite add up? Who smiled when you expected seriousness or stayed quiet when everyone else was talking? Who had depths you could sense but couldn't quite reach? You were pulled toward the mystery, toward the unknown, toward the possibility that there was more beneath the surface than they were showing. You don't need to be mysterious by hiding. You don't need to be secretive or dishonest or play games with information. You become mysterious by having a life so rich, so purposeful, so internally fulfilling that people only ever see portions of it. You're not performing distance, you're living depth. And depth, by its nature, can't be fully seen from the surface. When someone asks what you've been working on, you don't give them a dissertation. You don't walk them through every step of your process. You give them a fragment, something I'm building, something that's been on my mind. I'll share it when it's ready. That one sentence does more than an hour of explanation ever could. It creates investment. It creates curiosity. It creates a reason to come back to you. There was a craftsman in Italy during the Renaissance, a tailor. He wasn't the most talented. There were at least 3 others in his city with finer stitching, better materials, more experience. But he had a waiting list that stretched 6 months while the others struggled to fill their schedules. Why? Because he refused to rush. He turned away clients who demanded speed. He told a duke, an actual duke, that his order would have to wait because he had other commitments. Word spread, not about his skill, about his standards. And suddenly every nobleman in the region wanted to be dressed by him, not because the fabric was better, because being dressed by him meant you had earned it. The friction was the product. You must engineer friction into your own life, not artificially, not through games or manipulation, but through genuine standards. Stop being perpetually available, not to play hard to get, but because your time genuinely costs something and you should treat it that way. Stop agreeing to every invitation, not to seem important, but because saying no to the wrong things is the only way to say yes to the right ones. Stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned an explanation, not to be rude, but because your energy is finite and some people will drain it without ever giving anything back. When someone asks for your time, your help, your energy, your attention, they should feel the weight of what they're requesting. Not because you make it difficult, but because you have made your life so purposeful, so intentional, that diverting from it carries real cost. This is not arrogance. This is architecture. The person who gives freely is generous, but the person who gives selectively is powerful. And the difference between them is not kindness. It's intentionality. It's knowing that your presence is a gift, not a given. Your attention is the most valuable resource you own. More valuable than money because money can be earned back. Time can't. An hour of genuine, focused attention from a person of substance, from someone who has built something meaningful within themselves that is irreplaceable. Start treating it that way. When you do, something strange happens. People stop expecting you. They start appreciating you. The dynamic inverts. You are no longer the one pursuing. You are the one being pursued. And pursuit, once it reverses, almost never reverses back. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know what's resonating. Are you starting to see the patterns in your own life? The places where you've been giving too much to people who give too little? Now, let me tell you about the most important part, the thing that ties everything together. Because you can practice scarcity, you can create mystery. You can refuse to beg. You can build friction into your availability. But if all of that is just technique, just performance, just a mask you're wearing to get people to treat you differently, it will fall apart. People will sense the strain. They'll feel the desperation underneath the strategy, and the whole thing collapses. The real transformation happens when you stop performing power and start possessing it internally. And that possession comes from one source that almost nobody discusses honestly: self-betrayal, not the absence of it, the reckoning with it. Every time you said yes when your gut screamed no. Every time you laughed at a joke that demeaned you. Every time you stayed in a room, a relationship, a job, a friendship that was slowly hollowing you out because leaving felt harder than shrinking. Every time you abandoned your own standards to keep someone else comfortable. Those moments didn't just cost you peace, they cost you presence. They fractured something at the core of your identity, the quiet internal knowledge that you can trust yourself. And without that self-trust, every technique becomes desperation wearing a better suit. You can practice scarcity, but if deep down you believe you're not worth the wait, your body will betray you. Your eyes will dart, your voice will waver. You'll over-explain the pause you created, and the whole architecture collapses. You can practice mystery, but if you're hiding not from strategy but from shame, if you genuinely believe that if they saw the real you they would leave, then the mystery is not power. It's a prison. You can refuse to beg, but if the refusal is held together by white knuckles and a clenched jaw, people will sense the strain. And strain is just begging with better posture. So here's the uncomfortable work. You must audit your betrayals, not the betrayals others committed against you. Those are easy to catalog. Those are the stories you've told yourself 1,000 times. The ones you committed against yourself. The times you knew you should have walked away but stayed. The moments you dimmed yourself so someone else could feel bright. The promises you made to your own soul and broke before breakfast. The boundaries you set and then abandoned the first time someone pushed against them. The dreams you shelved because someone you loved didn't believe in them. The parts of yourself you hid because they'd made other people uncomfortable. Write them down if you have to. Not to punish yourself. Not to wallow in regret, but to see the pattern. Because once you see it, you can interrupt it. And once you interrupt it, you stop leaking the quiet signal that tells the world this person does not fully believe in their own worth. That signal, invisible, unspoken, radiating from every pore, is the reason techniques fail for most people. They are broadcasting unworthiness underneath a performance of strength, and human beings, at a subconscious level, can always detect the frequency beneath the words. When you stop betraying yourself, when you start honoring your own standards, even when it costs you, something shifts that cannot be explained through psychology alone. It's almost alchemical. Your voice changes, not louder, heavier. Your eyes settle, not cold, certain. Your presence fills a room differently, not aggressively, inevitably. People will start describing you in ways that confuse you. There's something about him. He's different now. I can't explain it, but I trust him. They're not responding to what you're doing. They're responding to what you have stopped doing. You have stopped apologizing for existing. You have stopped performing a version of yourself designed for someone else's comfort. You have stopped negotiating with your own boundaries. And in that cessation, in that refusal to bend any further, you become the thing that everyone is drawn to and almost no one can name. You become whole, not perfect, not invulnerable, not cold, whole. A person whose inside matches their outside. A person who does not need the room to validate what they already know about themselves. Before I close this out, if this message has shifted something in you, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it. Let people know that there's a different way to move through the world, a way that doesn't require you to shrink or beg or perform. You now have the architecture. The scarcity that comes from genuine fullness, not manufactured absence. The mystery that comes from depth, not deception. The posture that comes from self-respect, not ego. The friction that comes from real standards, not games. And the foundation, the brutal, quiet work of ending your war with yourself. But knowing the architecture and living inside it are two different things. And here's the thought I'll leave you with. The version of you that stops begging, that stops chasing, that stops performing, that version already exists. You felt it in flashes. In those rare moments when you said no and meant it. When you walked away from something comfortable because it was slowly killing you. When you sat in silence and realized that the silence was not emptiness. It was sufficiency. It was peace. It was you, stripped of everything that wasn't actually you, and discovering that what remained was enough. That version isn't someone you need to build from scratch. It's someone you need to stop burying. Someone you need to stop sacrificing on the altar of other people's expectations. And the question that will haunt you tonight, if you let it, is this. What are you still performing? And for whose applause? Because the day you stop performing is the day you start living. And that life, that authentic, unfiltered, unapologetic existence, is worth more than every shallow connection, every hollow achievement, every moment of borrowed validation you've been chasing. Machiavelli learned it in that room centuries ago. The philosopher learned it in chains. The merchant learned it in uncertainty. The tailor learned it through standards. And now it's your turn. Stop giving yourself away in pieces. Stop explaining your worth to people who wouldn't recognize value if it was standing in front of them. Stop waiting for permission to take up space. You were never meant to be background noise in your own life. You were meant to be the presence that shifts every room you enter. Not through force, not through performance. Through authenticity. Through the quiet, unshakable certainty that you are enough exactly as you are. The world will adjust. It always does. People will respect the boundaries you set. They'll value the attention you withhold. They'll chase the mystery you create. But first, you have to stop adjusting to the world. And that starts today. Right now. With one decision. I will no longer betray myself for the comfort of others. Make that your truth. Burn it into your bones. Let it guide every choice, every conversation, every moment of doubt. And watch everything change. If this resonated, hit that like button one more time. Share this with someone who's been settling. And I'll see you in the next one.